Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crossing Borders. I'm Mike Ginn. That's Extremo Alex Soto. Back this week, we're going to break down and give our reaction to LUX Fight League 34. Of course, Flyweight champion Jorge Calvo got the job done. And then we'll give a brief preview for LUX Fight League 35. And then we'll be out. So that's what we're doing today. Of course, head over to FightersFirst.shop. If you look right below Alex, you'll see his new Fight Like a Mexican shirt. Go ahead and get that. That's hot. It's in the shop now. Support the fighters, support the brand. FightersFirst.shop. Alex, how you feeling today, buddy?
I'm feeling great, fantastic.
Well rested from Cancun.
I still have my tan from Cancun going on right now. I feel great, man. I needed to go down there. I needed to jump in the water and just feel nature in Cancun. I think I'm from the Yucatan Peninsula, man. I think I'm a Mayan. I'm pretty sure. I mean, that's where my family has all its, its ancestry there. But then I think something happened. Maybe I got kicked out.
You like the warmer water versus the cold ass Pacific.
Yeah, man. Holy shit, man. Let me tell you, dude, Cancun is beautiful.
Because this time of year, the Pacific isn't that warm. It's pretty cold. It doesn't start getting warm till like later September and stuff.
Even then, it's only warm for about 2 weeks. You got two. In fact, right now as we speak, it's really nice. It's like almost 70. It's like 68 degrees.
Well, we've been in the middle of a heat wave down in Tampa for about the past, I don't know, month. So I'm getting like, I walk out of the house and I just combust. I'm like, boom. And even our water, I think off the coast of Florida, it was measured at 100 degrees. Yeah. So even the water's like boiling hot at this point. So there is no relief. It's like, go to the pool. That's like all you can do.
That sounds sad. That's good.
But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about LUX Fight League 34. Of course, Georgie always says we don't pick him. Well, we both picked him this time. Jorge Calvo getting the job done against Luis Power Solorzano. Of course, you also had Juan Diaz knocking off Luis Guerrero. Show Kid showed up and had a big knockout in the third round. So we'll talk about all that. Let's go ahead and jump into the main event. Defending his newly won, he won it the last time out. Jorge Calvo, the flyweight champion, defending against Luis Power Solorzano. And got the win. Fourth round, rear naked choke submission. What happened in that fight, and what'd you think of everything?
Man, I think for this one, I mean, I told you guys he's gonna get your back and he's gonna submit you. I think it's like his 8th rear naked choke fighting. I don't know what it is, but it's impressive. He just gets your back. His whole goal in fighting you is to get your back and choke you out. And that's exactly what we saw here. It was a one-sided beatdown from Jorge Calvo with an excellent game plan. He showed up, got the takedown, and just completely dominated on the ground. You know, we talk about how there's levels to this. And Jorge Calvo, being a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, was able to just dominate Solorzano throughout the entire match. It was rounds 1, 2, all the same. Solorzano just couldn't get any combinations out. He just could not get his feet to stand. And it was all Jorge Calvo showing up and just outperforming and outwitting his opponent. So congratulations.
Yeah, 10 out of 11 wins, or 10 out of 11 stoppages. He has 16 wins. 10 out of 11 stoppages, all submission. So that's what he does, you know. But the funny thing about this fight, you don't normally see him fired up. But he was fired up at the weigh-ins. He was pushing people. He was fired up. What was there some bad blood behind the scenes that people just didn't really know about? Just a lot of trash talk. What was going on?
I honestly, I don't even know if there was any bad, bad talk on that. But I'm sure, the excitement of being on the main event, the excitement of going up against a really tough opponent like Solorzano, who throws down, and I think it was all kind of getting, that psychological effects, right, in the game.
It's kind of getting under his skin a little bit.
Getting under his skin, throwing up, let's go, like we're going to fight, and have Solorzano commit for those combinations to get that takedown real quick, and then just dominating that way. And I think it worked. I think it worked fantastic for him. So,
must be the blonde hair. It must be the change to the blonde hair. Yeah, just a terrific performance from Calvo Martin. Definitely looking forward to him. Got some upcoming flyweight contenders, so we'll see what they do with that in the division. Now 16-6. Solorzano falls to 8-7. Kind of bouncing back a little bit for him, and we'll see what's up with him. He's put on a few performances in a row to get to this point, so I'm sure he'll bounce back pretty quickly. Over in the co-main event, kind of an upset. Juan Diaz, very good up-and-coming fighter. We said he was dangerous. Came into this fight 9-1, now 10-1. Rear naked choke once again over a very powerful, very strong Luis Guerrero. And we had talked about Luis Guerrero being a contender for that bantamweight title. Now he's retired. Like now he's like, all right, cool. It ran its course. We knew he was like kind of fighting on borrowed time anyway, as far as up there in his career, and making that one last run. And he got derailed by Juan Diaz. What happened in that fight?
Yeah, it was interesting in that fight. Guerrero was looking fantastic. He was throwing combinations, landing combinations, being the aggressor of the fighter, and taking on. Diaz was just tough as nails too, man. He was moving right, doing everything right, just looking for the right opportunity, and he was able to cinch in that rear naked choke at the last second of the first round. So. We didn't get to see a lot of Diaz, but Diaz was able to just kind of manipulate the last of it, right? And just kind of weather the storm and the experience level of Guerrero. And that was it, man. That's all she wrote. It was really quick. I mean, you just saw the speed of Diaz. You saw his IQ level was pretty impressive to watch as well in that fight. And that was it, man. That's all she wrote.
It's kind of crazy because we didn't know a lot about him, right? Like, He came in LUX Fight League 30 against Irvin Amaya and kind of surprised people a little bit with that win against Amaya, and then got this fight with Guerrero, who was knocking on the door for a title shot. And now all of a sudden you got to put Diaz in the conversation for a title shot at 10-1. And, he had the one loss back in, I think it was 2021. Other than that, just run through everybody through the regional circuit and now on a bigger stage. The kid is good. Power, submissions, can do a little bit of everything. I'm kind of sad about the result because, it looks like Luis Guerrero is going to retire now. And I think he still has a lot left in the tank, personally.
Yeah.
I know he's like 36 or so, but I just feel like he's got a lot left, 35, about to turn 36. Or no, he just turned 35. He's still not that old. And he still hasn't a lot in his career, only 15 pro fights. I mean, who knows, we talk about it all the time with, these fighters that have been fighting for a long time, their records that we don't know, right?
Well, he also had a very extensive kickboxer or Muay Thai career. I think it was like 40 professional Muay Thai fights. I mean, the guy's been in combat sports for a long time and kind of got into the MMA world a little bit late, so he's had an extensive career in combat sports, and it's a testament of how well and successful he was in the fights in MMA, especially here at LUX Fight League, with those highlight reel knockouts and everything like that. So but no, yeah, I agree. I'm pretty sad too. I thought he had a good opportunity to take this guy out, and he was looking great, but Diaz just showed up, and it's Diaz time right now.
Yeah, 5 fights in LUX Fight League, four straight finishes until he ran into Diaz. So, I don't know. He just looked so good even until he got caught against Diaz. I would love to see him go 1 or 2 more times, but every fighter has to say when. Maybe he just felt like, hey, I just don't have anything to achieve. He was making this run for the title. Now he's derailed. Maybe he doesn't want to start over. So,
right.
Like I said, you can't tell a fighter when to fight. If you don't want to fight, don't fight because you're going to get hurt. So, yourself, like once you turn that switch off, it's hard to turn it back on. So, speaking of turning the switch on, Show Kid showed up. Big 3rd round knockout against Tiger Perez. What happened in that one? Wow.
Man, yeah, Koya was on fire that night, man. There was no stopping that kid. He was excited. He just was loose in the game. He was loose in the combinations. He looked very attentive, stopping the takedowns, keeping his hands up high, and just completely dominating that fight. It was great to watch him fight and come back on the winning column and take out a tough guy, man. David Perez was hanging in there. Boy, that flying knee and then the punches, man, that was awesome.
He got punished against Luis Ivan Rodriguez. He stuck around for 3 rounds, but he got punished. To bounce back like this is a big, big win for him. And it definitely puts him back on the right track in that 125-pound division. We're looking for contenders for Martin, and he puts his name back in there. Of course, Luis Ivan's going to be above him, but another win or two, he could be fighting for a title soon too, because he's put on some really, really fun performances inside that LUX Fight League cage. Like every fight he goes out, win or lose, he's going on to put a show and just going to war.
And that has been some of his faults sometimes, where he's just
talk about fight like a Mexican.
Yeah, he's more excited about putting up a show than trying to tactically win the fight. And I think that kind of slipped with him, especially when he was fighting Jorge Calvo, and he got that split decision loss against Calvo, against the current champion. That kind of starts to open up a picture and kind of shows you this kid is he's the real deal.
I mean, you talk about a split decision. I mean, that opens the door for a rematch because Calvo still has something to prove. He has something to prove. But yeah, he is the epitome of fight like a Mexican. You got some competition for that one, Alex.
Yeah.
Win or lose, he's right there. Like you saw it against Luis Ivan. He was just kept coming. So last fight I'm going to kind of go into detail on the main card for is Alan Dominguez. Another really good performance against Martin Gonzalez. This kind of bounces Alan back to the point of where now we're talking about contendership. Well, I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on this because LUX doesn't have a welterweight champion. We've talked about Tarzan Alberto, one of our guys. We talked about Raul last episode. You got Alan Dominguez, who's going between 155 all the way up to 185. 170 seems to be a nice little sweet spot for him. Do you think this kind of sets him up, and maybe is that something LUX is looking at to set up a welterweight champion?
I think so. With Emmanuel Rivero being in talks and being the star at that weight class, Alan Dominguez has been around for a while, and he's gone up from 145, then went up to 155, and then now at 170, he looks great, man. He looks jacked. He looks like it's a really good fitting weight class for him.
Him and Soraya Roscoe, they work out like crazy.
Yeah, it's impressive, isn't it? And so I have kind of the same, and I've seen them in Cancun as well. Talking to them, I was just like, man, these guys are just like so. They make a good team.
You kept your shirt on, didn't you?
No, but it's just incredible, like just how just the good team that they have, and then not only that, but just they're jacked. Both of them are just in really phenomenal shape.
They really do push each other.
Yeah, exactly. And in that fight, he looked great. He looked flawless in that fight as well. So, I mean, it's a good fitting one. It'll be a tough matchup. Even then, I guess, Emmanuel Rivero, just because of his length and his height. So if you were to put that fight up together, does LUX have plans? I think it kind of does match up really well to kind of brings a nice little story there. A lot of experience, a lot of content already on Alan Dominguez. And then of course Emmanuel Rivero has a ton of stuff and highlight reel knockouts as well. So I think that's a really exciting matchup. I think it would kind of make sense to see something there for the title there. But you never know. So we're standing by and waiting to see what's going on with LUX and see what they decide to do. I still feel like Emmanuel Rivero is just like very young still in the game, and Alan Dominguez has had a wealth of experience already fighting. And putting up a lot of going up against really tough fights. So it'll be a tough matchup, I think, for both of them. Is it stylistically a great matchup, a great fight to watch? Man, it'll be tough. It'll be tough to say because it's that length that Emmanuel Rivero brings. So I don't know, lots of stuff we can talk about and speculate. But I think
let's not sleep on Raul Zaragoza.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah, no, we have Zaragoza, who's also in the mix for that. No, I'm not sleeping on anybody here. But I just feel like let's try to develop this 170 division up a little bit more and see which one makes the most sense.
Of course, selfishly, fighters first. Let's go, Alberto. But I am trying to be a journalist here and be unbiased.
Here we go.
I think Raul has a ton of potential as well. I think and then Dominguez throws that veteran experience in there with these two young guys. It makes that division a little bit more exciting. They have a hard time finding opponents for each of them. Might as well fight a couple of them together. Like let's let them go to war. And like you said, Dominguez is getting more and more jacked. He's fought a fight at 185 before, so it's not like he can't go up there. And the more muscle he has, the harder it is for him to cut weight. So I think 170, he looked really smooth. He looked like comfortable. It didn't look like a hard weight cut for him at all. He looked healthy in the cage. So, and he, like you said, he's jacked. So this guy's a problem. He is a problem. I will throw a shout out to Hannah Ramos. Just a fantastic win against Batiste with that armbar. Another thing, Memo Torres with that big knockout over Beto Garcia in the Challenger Series. Real quick, I'll run down the rest of the results and see if Alex has any opinion on anything. Toro Corrales got the win over Lobo Reyes, first round TKO. Talked about Hannah. We talked about Memo Torres. Pasha Rodriguez bounced back with a nice win against Mantis Martinez. Rifle Ortega got the win against Efren Hernandez. Decision. Lopez with the win over Lara with a third round TKO. And Zuniga with the win over Amaya with the first round rear naked choke. A lot of finishes, a lot of fun fights on this card. Any other kind of stand out to you? Any other highlights?
No, I like on the Luke's challenge. Guillermo Torres is dude, the dude's a beast, man. Great wrestling, Olympic level wrestler. And he was out there and did exactly what he needed to do for this fight. So I was really excited to see him perform the way he did and get that big W in spectacular fashion. So I think this bantamweight is going to sneak up on everybody here in the division. He's a very powerful guy with is a big threat, I think, especially with that kind of mentality to get into the Olympics. I spoke to him a little bit. He's trained with Henry Cejudo. He's been invited to come for the training camps with Henry Cejudo. So I mean, the kid's got a lot of talent, and I think it's somebody to highlight in the Luke's Challenge event.
Nah, he looked fantastic. And shout out to Pasha, right? Like, Pasha's been in some tough wars his last couple fights, Diego and Babyface, and all of a sudden, here he is bouncing back and getting that win against Mantis. Like, this dude, like, we thought he broke his ankle the last time out. He's right back in the cage like a month later and getting the win. So he's a little bit crazy, but he is definitely a fun and really awesome fighter. So shout out to him. That is LUX Fight League 34. We're going to turn our attention real quick. Not a full preview, but we'll give you a little bit of glimpse going into next week's LUX Fight League 35. Of course, headlined by Edgar Delgado versus Emmanuel Rivero for the vacant featherweight world title. You also got Irvin Amaya. You got some David Leon Mendoza on the card. So some fireworks going on there. Alex, I'll get your early opinion. What do you think of this matchup for the vacant featherweight championship? El Sabelero, the Onion, going against Rivero.
Yeah. Oh man, this is a great matchup. I think this is gonna be a banger.
Got a second chance, right? He moved down to featherweight, and now he's got a new chance.
Yeah, exactly. But I think for this one, I think Rivero, dude, the Argentinian, has so much power in his hands. We saw what he did at Babyface Patron, and just how tactical he is in his approach. I think he's got championship written all over him in this fight, and a very interesting matchup against Edgar Delgado. Delgado has, he's been in there. He's got some great fights, great comeback fights. But I just feel like it's just going to be too much power there coming from Rivero. So I'm going to go with him on that one. But yeah, very exciting matchup. I'm excited to see Irvin Amaya fighting up against Andre Barquero. And that's going to be a good stand-up matchup finally, right? Go ahead.
I got something to say about the main event first before you roll
Slow me down. Go ahead.
No, just real quick on the main event, though. I will say this. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. As much as Rivero has power, he's also been stopped a number of times by TKOs and knockouts. He's been caught by a heel hook. He's kind of like a 500 fighter. He has a great performance, kind of follows it up with and then comes back and has a decent performance. So you do have to look out. Being on a bigger stage, he looked great against Patron, but you go down his resume, Ruiz stopped him, Perez, Areola, Vega, Gavita. So he's kind of up and down. He goes for the knockout. He goes for the finish. You go against a guy against Delgado who has some submission skills and looked great against Reyes with the armbar, looked really good against Victoria's Vic Moreno. And he looks a lot stronger at featherweight than he ever did at lightweight. I actually am on the other side of you. I think this actually favors Delgado. I think the fact that he can grapple a little bit, if Rivero makes a mistake, he could end up getting subbed. And so I definitely think this is a favor. I know Delgado tends to fight the style of whoever he's fighting. I've seen like 3 or 4 of his fights. Like if it's a stand-up fight, he wants to stand up. If it's a grapple, he'll grapple. You know, and except for that one thing against Draco Casillo where he got caught with the walk-off knockout, where it was like a fake me out. Other than that, he's been, you know, toe-to-toe with every fighter he goes to. So I think he's a lot tougher than people give him credit for. And I do think Delgado is going to win the featherweight champion. So a little bit different than Alex this time. We'll see who comes out on this.
Okay. Hey, I'm good with that. I'm always right, but okay, that's good. I like your opinion.
What happened? Wasn't I texting you not too long ago about how you were wrong about something?
I don't know. I slipped maybe once, but this was pretty good.
Short-term memory, right? Short-term memory.
Yeah.
Always a winner. Let's go ahead and talk about Irvin Amaya versus Andre Barquero. I can't even say his name. Barquero. Sorry.
Barquero.
I can't roll my R's, bro.
That's all right.
Go ahead. Talk about the Storm. Let's go.
Well, the Storm Amaya, I mean, the guy is great, dude. I've always enjoyed watching his striking. And, you know, there's been some stuff where he's been taken down and hasn't been able to figure out the takedown defense and being able to get up. And those has been kind of his Achilles heel in his MMA career. So on this one, I'm hoping that he's able to pull this together because I think stylistically speaking, he's got a great matchup in front of him. He's gonna be put up against a guy who likes to stand and bang, strike, and is just as good in the striking game. So I think this is going to be a fun fight to watch. I think this is exactly one of the fan favorites that I like to see. So we'll see how this goes.
You know, I'm looking at the resume of Andre Barquero, and man, like he's got a little bit of everything. Stand up. He's got 6 submission wins. You know, you said Amaya struggled with submissions. You talk about Kevin Garcia. You talk about Juan Diaz. And funny enough, good friend of the show. Of course, I'm wearing the other Shorty shirt today because it was his birthday this week, Shorty Torres. Happy birthday, Shorty. But famously, Shorty versus Shorty, another friend of the network, Sean Santella, was his last loss back at CFFC 76 back in 2019, where he lost a decision. This guy does have a lot of submissions. I think that could be a problem for Amaya. If it stays standing, I think Amaya wins this easy. But if it goes to the ground, I think it might be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where, you know, Irvin Amaya is going to be put for the test. That's going to be the strategy that Irvin Amaya has to come up here and be able to stop that takedown. And if he's able to stop that takedown, I think Irvin Amaya could take this home.
Yeah, real quick, I'll run down the rest of the card. Let me know if you have any highlights for this. You got Luis Reagan Galios versus David Leon Mendoza. That's going to be fireworks at the bantamweight. Hugo Flores versus Luis Medrano. You got Alejandro Sequeira versus Isaac Samoya. You got Damian Fernandez versus Fabian Lopez. Emilio Saverda versus Abraham Nava. You got Efren, I'll probably butcher this, I apologize, but Tiarina versus Alexis Leon. You got Andres Leal back in there versus Antonio Barajas, and then Arturo Martinez versus Manuel Cazares, which is both their debuts. Any of those other fights kind of stand out to you? I know the David Mendoza fight's going to be fun.
My favorite is the return of Hugo Flores. I think that was a star power guy that we had in the beginning when we first started, you know, broadcasting LUX Fight League. Hugo Flores fought for the championship. He beat, of course, gosh, his name's slipping my mind right now. But Hugo Flores has got beautiful hands, man. And I mean, like,
about the fight against Soto.
Yeah, when he beat Soto, exactly.
he lost.
No, when he beat against Sergio Cosillo, he got the title there, and then he lost it against Bahamondes in the decision, which I thought, you know, that was to me kind of like, whoa, Bahamondes is the shit. You know, he showed up and put a great cleaning up against Hugo Flores, but Hugo Flores was never really out of that game. He was standing in the pocket, he was getting in great combinations in, but the elusiveness of Bahamondes was what made that fight so interesting, and Bahamondes took that decision win. Hugo Flores. I'm telling you, man, Hugo Flores has great striking. He's got like a really good killer instinct. and he's
real
got
quick,
tons of experience. So
just because I'm not up to date on the history of Luke's the way you are. Real quick, so he won the title against Draco, lost it against Bahamondes. Did he win it? Was Soto just a fight in between?
Yeah,
then he lost to Casillo.
He lost to Casillo in what was a unanimous decision. But when I watched that fight, it was just as close as the first time they fought, which was also like a split decision kind of a fight. So, I mean, the judges gave it a unanimous, but I thought it was a lot closer back then. But, and I feel like we had unfinished business with Hugo Flores. I think the hooligans he's very impressive to watch. Very, and after that, I think he went to Combate Americas or did some stints in some of the regional promotions. But
he had three fights at Combate Global. Yeah.
Gotcha. So I think that kind of I feel like that kind of slowed things for him because he was in the title mix. He had great opportunities within Luke's. I think he had unfinished business too with Draco Cosillo. But now Cosillo's gone. He's with Bellator, and so great. The doors are open now for this kid. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and a couple things on that note as we transition out of this show. A couple things. Speaking of Combate, I do want to send a shout out to Nicdali, Rivera Kalanick, longtime pioneer in the sport, San Diego native, who's done a lot in the sport, made her return at Combate Global, the Mexico versus USA card back on July 16th, got the big win. Her first in several years. She hasn't been fighting. She's been doing a lot of other things. But she always trains. She's always been moving up the charts as far as her jiu-jitsu goes. I've seen her get her belts as she keeps progressing. So she's always training. Of course, her husband, Travis Kalanick, famous trainer for a lot of people traveling around doing different things. So really great to see her get the win. And then also you talk about Bellator, a lot of rumors right now that PFL Bellator merger taking place in August. So that's going to open the doors for a lot of fighters. I think it kind of cuts down on the rosters for both of them because you're going to want the best of the best. But they're PFL's opening up that pay-per-view division next year with a lot of big-name fighters. Of course, they got their tournaments, Bellator's Grand Prix. We talk about Draco Casillo. He's now in Bellator, which now will be part of that if they merge. And a lot of fighters already consider it a done deal. So it's pretty much, the cat's out of the bag as far as that. What do you think about that merger? And what do you think that means there'll still be the number 2 promotion. What do you think that means for a lot of these up-and-coming Mexican fighters looking for a home?
I think that's interesting. When we think about mergers, and we've seen historical mergers, right? They usually buy them and then run it down to the ground, right? So I don't know what it means. In this case,
they're both kind of on even footing. It's not like the UFC buying Strikeforce. Like these guys are both like pretty much.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, PFL isn't PFL kind of like the sister of the World Fight League or whatever was it called?
So they used to be part. Ray Seffo had his promotion before World Series of Fighting. When I interviewed Ray back when we started the Unfiltered show, he made it clear that it's not the same. So it's a lot of the same people. But this is Dom Davis and this other group that said, hey, shut this down, because you got to remember they also had all the controversy with Ali Abdulaziz and the commission and his fighters and favoritism. And it was all these things that Ray said it really wasn't as true as people made it is, but it became an issue. So they shut that down and started PFL kind of like bang, bang, like one happened, the other one happened. So people considered it to be a carryover because a lot of the same people, especially executives, were involved. But technically, PFL is its own thing that started with Dom Davis out of Great Falls, Virginia, my old backyard, and got Ray Seffo to kind of handle the talent part of things while they handle the business part of things.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out, man. I know PFL is putting up a lot of money, right? It's been putting up so much money for these fighters and it's been getting the attention in the MMA industry, not necessarily the consumer industry. I think most people don't know what PFL is. And then very few, if any, know what Bellator is as well. So when you look at Bellator, they're being backed up by a huge organization, a huge media corporation that owns Viacom that owns Bellator. So they've always been backed up by investors and by a ton of money. And I feel PFL has always been by itself with its, limited funding, but been making huge waves on
It's
it.
not
So
limited. See, that's where you're wrong. They got $250 million from the Saudis.
I'm not calling that limited, but I am saying
But
they've been putting up a lot of cash.
You're right. They're private.
They're private, exactly.
Privately
So
funded.
it's not. Thank you. So and because of that, there's things that are attached to those kind of things, right? They have a little bit more fluid movement, if you will. So Bellator absorbing PFL is a very interesting thing to understand and to kind of wrap my head around. Wonder what is that? What is it? Are they a threat? Is that why they purchased?
It's the other way around. PFL bought Bellator.
Oh, I see. Okay, is that what happened?
Bellator's been for sale for a while. Viacom's wanted to kind of offload them a little bit because it's not a big moneymaker for them. So what they wanted to do, so a bunch of people came in, including the Saudis, wanting to buy Bellator. The rumors, everything's never been officially announced to everything. But according to Ray Sefo, according to Don Davis, according to other people, they've been in discussions. Scott Coker has said that discussions have happened. And now it seems to be a big thing getting ready to announce. At least a lot of fighters have kind of leaked it out in August, sometime this month, that when they have their big press conference, that PFL is merging, but they're technically buying a big stake. Viacom will continue to own a little bit. And even further, PFL is rumored to be leaving ESPN and going to another streaming platform or different platforms, similar, probably, I'm guessing, Viacom. I'm assuming they're going to be on Showtime and take over that Bellator deal. So I don't know if they're going to keep them separate. I don't know if they're going to keep them together. I just know that there's going to be a lot more money involved, and where money is, that's good for the fighters.
Interesting. Okay, well, we'll see how that turns out, man. We'll see. It's really difficult, I think, with the brand loyalty for being towards the UFC, to come up with some sort of new league that's going to somehow take some sort of the market share in pay-per-views. Still very interesting. Still very young.
Versus finance, right? Like, do you want to be a fighter that's known for being a big name, or do you want to be well paid? And that's really kind of the difference, because UFC isn't really paying you that much unless you're a John Jones or top name, or Conor McGregor. Whereas Bellator is paying, like Corey Anderson, Bellator light heavyweight, has made more in his 3-4 fights than he did his entire career in the UFC.
Sure. But the coveted UFC, man. Fighters want to fight in the UFC.
Yeah. So it's name value versus financial security.
Brand loyalty. If you make it big, then you're in the UFC still, right? You're making millions of dollars in the UFC. If you were the big guy, if you're filling in tickets, then you're having a great career in the UFC. But if you're not selling seats in the UFC, then you go to Bellator or to PFL. You're still not selling a lot of seats. You're still not. You might be great in the game. You might be, fantastic, but you're not filling up seats. You're not selling pay-per-views, and that's essentially what's happening with some of these fighters that go to Bellator. Is that they're not big cash cows anymore, or if they ever were cash cows. So to me, when I hear these mergers and stuff with big money, hundreds of millions of dollars, I think to myself, well, oh man, it seems like such a risky investment. And trying to take the market share of those pay-per-view buys, it's a really, really tough competition against the UFC. So, I mean, if they get it, great. They have, a lot of people have come up with these great visions and have, attained great things. And I just don't see anybody coming in and putting up those kind of numbers. Somehow they sign a Conor McGregor, make a guy that's just like this fantastic marketer, right? Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, I was gonna say, somehow they signed a name like that. Well, they did sign Francis Ngannou. That guy was selling 300,000 pay-per-view buys, at his peak. So that's a perfect example of somebody who, he was the greatest, or a great heavyweight champion, but that dude was selling 300,000 pay-per-view buys. Yeah. Not his fault. He's still an amazing a lot
fighter.
Of matchups too, right? If he fought John Jones, they would have been like boom, right? Look, honestly, I think anytime fighters can make more money, you have a very short window to make money as is. Every fight could be your last fight because you're in a dangerous game. I say make your money. Now, what I will say is that nobody's going to take the UFC's market share anytime soon. Like that's not going to happen. But I think there's more room. I think, you see it with boxing and how much different avenues you can go to make money. And I think, like I said, y'all are prize fighters. You're paid to fight. And if you get notability, it's great. But if you can take care of your family for the rest of your lives, that's even better. So, we'll see how it turns out. We will see it turns out. But like I said, it's a lot more opportunity for fighters, and I think that's a good thing. So. And if anything else, we saw this in wrestling with WCW and WWE. It made WWE start paying people more. So if this makes UFC start paying people more, then once again, it's a win for the fighters. So competition makes everybody better. But with that, make sure you tune into LUX Fight League next week. Unfortunately, no Alex Soto. He will be doing his versus fighting championship, Muay Thai, giving away another $10,000, right?
Not this time. We'll be doing the amateur league on this one.
Who's the main event in this one?
We got a lot of black belts in jiu-jitsu showing up on this one. So it's more like a big collage of like a lot of the amateur fighters here in Southern California that are grouped up and fighting. So we're not having like this big, crescendo to the main event. We just have a lot of local fighters lining up.
Awesome. Well, pay attention to it on social media. Follow Versus Fighting Championship. Follow Alex. He will definitely be letting you guys know everything going on with that. And then tune into LUX Fight League next week and see who was right, me or Alex. Who's going to take that new featherweight champion? For Extremo Alex Soto, I'm Mike Gann. This is Crossing Borders, and we're out.